The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers for the third time tonight, clanging against the concrete floor of my garage like a bell announcing my incompetence. I wiped my hands on an already filthy rag and stared at the rusted undercarriage of my 2003 Mustang, wondering when exactly my life had become a series of small failures. "Mark, are you coming in any time soon?" Jenna's voice drifted from the kitchen window, sharp with that particular brand of irritation reserved for husbands who dare to have hobbies. "Just finishing up," I called back, though we both knew I'd been out here for 3 hours accomplishing nothing more than redistributing dirt and rust flakes. At 45, I'd somehow become the guy who fixed computers for small businesses during the day and pretended to fix cars at night. The American dream, right there. My wife Jenna had her law degree and her corner office downtown, while I crawled under desks troubleshooting printer connections for companies that paid me just enough to keep the mortgage current. The kitchen window slammed shut with enough force to rattle the glass. Through the yellow rectangle of light, I could see Jenna gesturing animatedly at someone. Probably Sophie, our 20-year-old daughter, home from college for the weekend with another batch of laundry and an empty bank account. I grabbed my toolbox and headed inside, already composing the apology I'd need to deliver. The screen door squeaked on its hinges, another item for my ever-growing list of household repairs that would never get done. "Just think you deserve better, Mom. I mean, look at him." I froze in the mudroom, Sophie's words hitting me like a slap. Through the doorway, I could see her sitting at our kitchen table, still wearing her Ohio State sweatshirt, gesturing toward the window where I'd just been visible. "Sophie, that's enough," Jenna said, but her tone lacked conviction. "No, seriously. When's the last time he took you anywhere nice? When's the last time he even tried to look good for you? Dad's given up, and you know it." I set my toolbox down quietly, suddenly very interested in what my daughter really thought of me. "Your father works hard," Jenna replied. But again, the words felt hollow. "At what? Fixing other people's computers? Mom, you're a partner at Morrison & Associates. You could have anyone. You could have someone like Luke." Luke. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Luke Hines, the personal trainer at Jenna's gym, the guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine and talked like he'd swallowed a motivational poster. "Luke is just a friend," Jenna said quickly. Too quickly. "Come on, Mom. I've seen how he looks at you. And honestly, he's what you deserve. Someone who takes care of himself. Someone successful." I pressed myself against the mudroom wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. My own daughter was essentially telling my wife to leave me. For Luke. "I should get to bed," Jenna said, and I heard chair legs scraping against linoleum. "You should too. Don't you have that early class tomorrow?" Yeah, but Mom, just think about what I said, okay? You only get one life." Footsteps moved through the house, and I waited until I heard bedroom doors closing before I finally entered the kitchen. The room smelled like the fancy coffee Jenna had started buying, another small luxury that had appeared without explanation. I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a can of the cheap light brew I'd been drinking for 15 years. The same brand, the same taste, the same everything. When had I become so predictable? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Sophie's words echoed in my head as I sat at the same kitchen table where she'd just been dissecting my marriage. "Dad's given up." Had I? I looked around the kitchen, really looked at it. The paint was peeling near the window, the cabinet doors hung slightly crooked, the faucet had been dripping for 6 months. When had I stopped trying? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Jenna's social media, something I rarely did. Her latest post showed her at some charity event downtown, looking radiant in a black dress I'd never seen before. The comments were full of praise from her colleagues and friends. "Gorgeous as always. Power woman. Living your best life." I wasn't in any of the photos. Scrolling further, I found pictures from her gym, group fitness classes, protein smoothie reviews, and yes, there was Luke. Tall, muscular, with the kind of smile that probably made middle-aged women forget they were married. In one photo, his hand was on Jenna's shoulder as they posed with other gym members. "Just friends," she'd said. I closed the app and finished my drink, staring at the dark window that reflected my tired face back at me. Thinning hair, soft around the middle, wearing a t-shirt with more holes than fabric. When had I become invisible in my own life? The house settled around me with creaks and sighs, and I found myself wondering if this was it, if this was all there was. A garage full of broken projects, a daughter who saw me as a failure, and a wife who might be looking elsewhere for whatever I wasn't providing. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, where Jenna was already asleep or pretending to be. She lay on her side, facing away from me, her breathing too controlled to be natural. I slipped into bed quietly, maintaining the careful distance that had somehow become normal between us. In the darkness, I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember the last time we'd really talked. Not about bills or schedules or Sophie's college expenses, but actually talked. The last time she'd looked at me the way she used to, like I was someone worth knowing. I couldn't remember. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and I closed my eyes, trying to push away the image of Luke's hand on my wife's shoulder, trying to forget my daughter's casual dismissal of everything I'd worked for. But sleep didn't come easy, and when it finally did, it was filled with dreams of empty garages and locked doors. The next morning brought the kind of gray October weather that made everything look like it was fading. I stood at the kitchen window, watching rain streak down the glass while coffee brewed behind me. Jenna had already left for work. Her car was gone from the driveway, leaving only an oil stain and the lingering scent of her expensive perfume. Sophie emerged from her room around 10, hair in a messy bun, scrolling through her phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Morning, Dad," she mumbled without looking up. "Morning. Want some breakfast?" "Nah, I'm meeting friends for brunch downtown." She grabbed her purse from the counter. "Can I borrow $20? I pulled out my wallet and handed her a 20, watching as she stuffed it into her designer purse, a gift from Jenna, no doubt. Everything Sophie owned these days seemed to cost more than my monthly car payment. "Thanks. Oh, and Mom said she's working late tonight. Some big case or whatever?" She was gone before I could respond, leaving me alone with the dripping faucet and my own thoughts. Working late. Jenna had been working late a lot recently. Always some urgent case, some client dinner, some conference that couldn't wait. I finished my coffee and decided to tackle the broken washing machine. At least it was something I could actually fix. The basement was cool and damp, filled with the accumulated junk of 20 years of marriage. Christmas decorations, Sophie's old toys, boxes of photos we never looked at anymore. The washing machine sat in the corner like a white metal monument to domestic failure. I'd been meaning to fix it for weeks, but Jenna had started taking her clothes to some fancy dry cleaner downtown instead of waiting for me to get around to it. I pulled the machine away from the wall and immediately saw the problem, a loose connection in the water line. Simple fix. As I worked, I found myself thinking about last night's conversation. Sophie's words kept replaying in my head, each repetition making them sting a little more. Dad's given up. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had given up. When was the last time I'd surprised Jenna with anything? When was the last time I'd made an effort to be the kind of man she'd fallen in love with? I tightened the connection and pushed the machine back into place, then headed upstairs to test it. Jenna's gym bag sat by the front door, forgotten in her rush to leave. Without really thinking about it, I picked it up to move it out of the way. Something hard pressed against the fabric from inside. I hesitated, then unzipped the bag. Workout clothes, water bottle, protein bars, and a phone I'd never seen before. A cheap flip phone, the kind people bought when they wanted privacy, when they wanted to hide something. My hands shook as I opened it. The recent calls list showed dozens of entries for LH Luke Hines. The messages were worse. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Hotel room 237. I'll be waiting. You looked incredible in that dress. Can't stop thinking about you." And from Jenna. "Mark's working in the garage. We have time." I sat down hard on the stairs, the phone trembling in my hands. 22 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. Secret phones and hotel rooms, and my wife discussing me like I was an obstacle to be worked around. The messages went back months. Months of lies, of working late, and client dinners, and girls' nights out. Every excuse I'd believed, every time I'd kissed her goodbye not knowing she was going to meet him. There were photos, too, nothing explicit, but intimate enough. Jenna laughing at some restaurant I'd never been to. Luke's hand on her face in what was clearly a hotel room. My wife looking happier than I'd seen her in years. I scrolled through message after message, each one a small betrayal that added up to something devastating. They had pet names for each other. Inside jokes. Plans for a future that apparently didn't include me. "Thinking about leaving him," one of Jenna's messages read. "Sophie thinks I should." So my daughter wasn't just encouraging her mother to cheat, she was actively pushing for divorce. How long had they been planning this? How long had I been the fool in my own house? I put the phone back in the bag exactly as I'd found it and zipped it closed. My legs felt unsteady as I stood up, like the ground had shifted beneath me. The house around me suddenly felt foreign, like I was seeing it through different eyes. This was the home where I'd changed Sophie's diapers and helped her with homework, where Jenna and I had painted walls and argued about furniture and made plans for the future, where I'd thought we were building something together. But apparently, I'd been building alone. I walked through the rooms like a stranger, noticing things I'd missed before. The way Jenna had rearranged the bedroom, moving my things to make more space for hers, the expensive clothes hanging in her closet. When had she started shopping at places I couldn't afford? The new jewelry box on her dresser, filled with pieces I'd never seen her wear. In the bathroom, her side of the medicine cabinet was full of products I didn't recognize. Expensive creams and perfumes, birth control pills, which was interesting since we hadn't been intimate in months. I sat on the edge of our bed and tried to process what I'd learned. My wife was having an affair, my daughter supported it, and I was apparently such a pathetic failure that they felt comfortable discussing it in my own kitchen. The rationale part of my brain told me to confront Jenna directly, to demand an explanation, to fight for our marriage, to try to work things out like adults. But another part of me, a part I didn't recognize, was thinking about Luke's smug face in those social media photos, about the hotel room messages, about my wife describing me as an obstacle to be worked around. That part wanted something else entirely. I pulled out my own phone and did something I'd never done before. I looked up Luke Hines online. His social media was full of shirtless selfies and motivational quotes about living your best life and taking what you deserve. He had a fancy apartment downtown, drove a new Audi, and seemed to spend his days taking photos of his abs. This was the man my wife preferred over me. This Instagram fitness model who probably couldn't change a tire or fix a washing machine or hold down a real job, but he could give her something I apparently couldn't. Excitement, maybe. The feeling of being desired by someone who looked like he belonged in a magazine. I closed the browser and sat in the quiet house, listening to the rain against the windows. For the first time in years, I felt completely awake, alert, like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life and had suddenly snapped back to consciousness. Jenna thought she could plan my replacement while living in my house, spending my money, pretending to be my wife. Sophie thought she could encourage her mother's affair while I paid her college tuition. They both thought I was too pathetic to fight back. Maybe it was time to prove them wrong. I spent the rest of Saturday in my garage, but not working on the Mustang. Instead, I sat on an overturned crate staring at the oil stains on the concrete floor and thinking about what I'd learned. Every few minutes, rage would surge through me like electricity, followed by something colder and more calculating. By Sunday morning, I had the beginnings of a plan. Jenna came downstairs around 9, already dressed for what she claimed was a work brunch with colleagues. She looked beautiful, I had to admit that. The affair had given her a glow I hadn't seen in years. She was taking better care of herself, dressing nicer, even walking differently, more confident. "I'll probably be gone most of the day," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Big merger coming up, lots to discuss." "On Sunday?" I asked mildly. "You know how it is. Law doesn't take weekends off." She kissed my cheek, a brief brush of lips that felt like a performance. "Sophie's driving back to school this afternoon. Can you make sure she has enough money for gas?" "Of course." I watched her gather her purse and keys, wondering if the hotel phone was in there. "Drive safe." She left without looking back, and I found myself analyzing that kiss. When had her affection become so mechanical? When had I become someone she had to pretend to love? Sophie appeared an hour later, dragging a laundry bag and wearing the kind of outfit that probably cost more than I made in a week. Designer jeans, expensive boots, a leather jacket that still had tags. "New jacket?" I asked. "Mom got it for me. Early birthday present." She dumped her laundry bag by the washing machine I'd just fixed. She said I needed to start dressing like I come from a successful family. The words hit exactly as intended. Sophie had always been direct, but lately her comments felt deliberately cruel, like she was testing how much I'd take before I finally pushed back. "Your mother's generous," I said carefully. "She works hard. She deserves to spend money on nice things." Sophie grabbed a water bottle from the fridge. "Maybe if you worked harder, you could afford nice things too." There it was, the casual dismissal wrapped in the logic of a 20-year-old who'd never paid her own bills. I watched her scroll through her phone, probably texting friends about her pathetic father, and felt that cold calculation settle deeper in my chest. "You're right," I said. "Maybe I should work harder." She looked up, surprised by my agreement. "Really?" "Really. Maybe it's time I started taking what I deserve." Something in my tone made her frown, but before she could respond, I was already walking away. I had work to do. The first step was information. I drove to the electronics store downtown and bought a small digital camera with a telephoto lens. Nothing fancy, just something that could take clear pictures from a distance. The kid at the register looked bored as he rang me up, probably assuming I was some middle-aged guy trying to get back into photography. If only he knew. Next, I stopped by the library and used their computers to research Luke Hines more thoroughly. Social media had given me the basics, but I needed details. Where he lived, where he worked, his schedule, his habits. The internet made stalking remarkably easy if you knew where to look. Luke's apartment was in one of those converted warehouse buildings downtown, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Expensive. His Audi was parked in the building's garage, pristine and probably worth more than I made in 2 years. His gym was called Elite Fitness, and according to their website, he taught classes Tuesday and Thursday evenings, plus Saturday mornings. I cross-referenced this with Jenna's recent work schedule and found perfect matches. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd been working late. Every Saturday, she'd had client meetings. The pattern was so obvious, I couldn't believe I'd missed it. I drove past Elite Fitness and parked across the street, watching the entrance. The clientele was exactly what I'd expected. Wealthy, middle-aged women in expensive workout clothes, driving luxury cars, looking like they had more money than sense. My wife fit right in. I spent an hour watching people come and go, taking mental notes. The gym had large windows facing the street, making it easy to see inside. Luke was visible through the glass, leading a yoga class, his hands adjusting poses on women who clearly didn't need the help. The rage surged again, but I pushed it down. Anger was useful, but only if I controlled it instead of letting it control me. On the drive home, I stopped at a hardware store and bought a few items that might come in handy later. Nothing illegal, nothing that would raise suspicions, just tools that could be repurposed if needed. Jenna came home around 6, glowing and relaxed in a way that made my stomach turn. She'd showered somewhere else, her hair was still slightly damp, and she smelled like soap that wasn't ours. "How was the work brunch?" I asked. "Productive, very productive." She smiled, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the woman I'd married. Happy, confident, alive. "I think this merger is going to change everything for me." Change everything how? New opportunities. New possibilities. A chance to finally live the life I want. She said it like I wasn't part of that life, like I was something she was planning to leave behind. Maybe she was. "That's great, honey. You deserve to be happy?" She looked at me sharply, probably surprised by my supportive tone. "Thank you. That means a lot." We ate dinner in relative silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. She kept checking her phone, smiling at messages I couldn't see. I kept thinking about hotel room 237 and wondering how many times they'd met there. After dinner, she disappeared upstairs to catch up on case files, leaving me alone with the dishes and my plans. I could hear her moving around in our bedroom, probably texting Luke, maybe planning their next meeting. I finished cleaning the kitchen and went to my computer. Time for the next phase of my research. Luke's social media presence was extensive and remarkably stupid. He posted constantly. Workout videos, motivational quotes, photos of his meals, his apartment, his car. He even posted his daily schedule, apparently believing his followers needed to know when he was at the gym, when he was grocery shopping, when he was meeting friends for dinner. He'd essentially created a stalker's handbook and posted it online. I started taking screenshots, building a comprehensive file of his habits and routines. The man was predictable to the point of comedy. Same coffee shop every morning at 7, same grocery store every Wednesday evening, same route to and from the gym. Most importantly, same hotel every Tuesday and Thursday night. The Riverside Inn, room 237. He'd even posted photos of the view from the window, the idiot. As I worked, I could hear Jenna talking quietly on the phone upstairs. Her voice was soft, intimate, full of the warmth that used to be mine. She was probably lying in our bed, telling another man how much she missed him, how she couldn't wait to see him again. The rage tried to surface again, but I kept it buried. Rage was for later. Right now, I needed to think clearly. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a plan, exactly, but a list of possibilities. Ways to expose the affair that would cause maximum embarrassment. Ways to make Luke's life complicated. Ways to ensure that when this was over, everyone would know exactly what kind of people they were. By midnight, I had 15 pages of notes and a clear sense of direction. Jenna thought she could replace me with a younger, prettier model. Sophie thought I was too pathetic to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs, where Jenna was pretending to sleep. She changed into new lingerie, black lace that I'd never seen before, probably bought for someone else's benefit. I lay down beside her and stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Tomorrow, I'd start putting my plan into motion. Tomorrow, I'd begin showing them what happened when you underestimated Mark Carter. But tonight, I just lay there in the dark, memorizing the sound of her breathing, knowing it might be one of the last peaceful nights any of us would have. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My boss, Mr. Geller, sounded genuinely concerned. "You never take sick days, Mark. Must be pretty bad." "Just need to take care of some personal business," I told him. "Should be back tomorrow." "Take all the time you need. Health comes first." If only he knew what kind of health I was trying to restore. Jenna left for work at her usual time, kissing my forehead like I was a sick child. "Feel better, honey? I'll pick up some soup on my way home." She wouldn't be home until late, of course. Tuesday was one of her work nights. After she left, I drove downtown and parked across from the Riverside Inn. It was the kind of place that catered to business travelers and people having affairs, nice enough to feel special, anonymous enough to keep secrets. I'd driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. Now it felt like the most important building in the city. I didn't have to wait long. At 11:47 a.m., Luke's Audi pulled into the parking lot. He got out wearing gym clothes and a baseball cap, trying to look casual, trying to look like he belonged there. He disappeared into the hotel, and I started my timer. 43 minutes later, he emerged, looked around carefully, and drove away. A lunch meeting with my wife, probably. A quick session between his morning and afternoon clients. The rage threatened to surface again, but I pushed it down. Information first. Revenge later. I spent the afternoon at Elite Fitness, sitting in my car with the new camera. Luke taught a 2 p.m. spinning class, and through the large windows I could see him leading a group of middle-aged women through their workout. He was good at it, I had to admit. Confident, encouraging, clearly popular with his clients. At 3:30, a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. Jenna's silver BMW, the one I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. She got out wearing workout clothes I'd never seen, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look 10 years younger. I raised the camera and started taking pictures. She walked into the gym like she owned it, greeting Luke with a hug that lasted too long and included whispered words that made them both laugh. Then she joined his 4 p.m. yoga class, positioning her mat directly in front of his teaching spot. For the next hour, I documented their interaction through the telephoto lens. The way he adjusted her poses with unnecessary touching, the way she looked at him when she thought no one was watching, the way they stood close together during breaks, their body language screaming intimacy. When the class ended, most people left immediately. Jenna lingered, helping Luke put away equipment, their heads bent together in conversation. At one point, he said something that made her laugh so hard she had to grab his arm for support. I hadn't made her laugh like that in years. They left separately, Luke first, then Jenna 10 minutes later. But I'd seen enough. The photos on my camera told a clear story of two people who were definitely more than friends. That evening, Jenna came home with Thai food and an elaborate story about a difficult client meeting that had run late. "Sorry I'm so exhausted," she said, settling onto the couch with her pad thai. "This merger is consuming my life." "Must be stressful," I agreed, thinking about the photos of her laughing in Luke's arms. "It is, but it's also exciting, like I'm finally becoming the person I was meant to be." She said it with such conviction that I almost felt sorry for her. She genuinely believed she was discovering herself, when really she was just having a midlife crisis with a personal trainer. "I'm proud of you," I said, and meant it. She was about to become exactly the person she was meant to be, just not in the way she expected. The next morning, I put Phase 2 into motion. Luke's routine was as predictable as I'd hoped. Every morning at 7 a.m., he stopped at a coffee shop called Grind downtown, ordered the same drink, and sat at the same table by the window to check his phone and post his daily motivational quote. I arrived at 6:45 and positioned myself at a table with a clear view of his usual spot. When he walked in, I was ready. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, muscular, with the kind of artificial tan that came from expensive salons. His clothes were designer casual, the kind of outfit that was supposed to look effortless but probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He ordered his usual, some complicated coffee drink with extra shots and foam art, and settled at his table. Within minutes, he was absorbed in his phone, probably texting my wife good morning. I waited until he was completely distracted, then walked over to his table. "Luke Hines?" He looked up, confused. "Yeah?" "Mark Carter. I think we have some mutual friends." Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed quickly by something that might have been fear. Good. He should be afraid. "I don't think we've met," he said carefully. "No, but I feel like I know you. I've heard so much about you." I sat down across from him without being invited, especially from my wife. The color drained from his face. Up close, he looked younger than his 38 years, with the kind of smooth skin that came from expensive products and no real stress. That was about to change. "Look, man, I don't know what you think. I think you've been sleeping with my wife. I kept my voice conversational, like we were discussing the weather. I think you've been meeting her at the Riverside Inn, room 237, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. He started to stand, but I reached across the table and grabbed his wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to keep him in place. Sit down, Luke. We're not finished talking. He sat, his eyes darting around the coffee shop like he was looking for help. The other customers were absorbed in their own conversations, oblivious to the drama playing out 10 feet away. I could make a scene, I continued pleasantly. I could stand up right now and tell everyone in here exactly what kind of man you are, how you specialize in breaking up marriages, how you prey on lonely women with more money than sense. It's not like that, he whispered. No? Then what is it like? Explain it to me. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. What could he say? That he loved her? That it was real? That would only make it worse. Here's what's going to happen, I said, leaning forward. You're going to end it. Today. You're going to tell my wife that whatever this is between you is over, and you're never going to contact her again. And if I don't? I smiled, and something in my expression made him shrink back in his chair. Then I'm going to make your life very interesting. I know where you live, where you work, what you drive, who your clients are. I know about your little social media empire and your precious reputation. How do you think your followers would react if they knew you were a homewrecker? I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken yesterday, him and Jenna in an intimate embrace after yoga class. This is just one of many, I said. I have enough evidence to destroy you, Luke. The question is whether you're smart enough to walk away quietly. He stared at the photo, his face pale. You've been watching us. I've been protecting my family. There's a difference. I stood up and dropped a $5 bill on the table. You have until tonight to end it. If I find out you've contacted her after today, if I see you anywhere near her, if you so much as like one of her social media posts, I will ruin you. Do we understand each other? He nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. Enjoy your coffee. I walked out of the shop feeling more alive than I had in months. The look of fear in Luke's eyes had been intoxicating. For once, I was the one with power. For once, someone else was afraid. But as I drove home, I realized I'd made a tactical error. Confronting Luke directly might stop the affair, but it wouldn't address the real problem. Jenna had chosen to cheat. Sophie had encouraged her. They'd both decided I was expendable. Scaring off Luke was just the beginning. If I really wanted justice, I needed to think bigger. I needed to make sure everyone understood the consequences of underestimating Mark Carter. Luke didn't end it. I knew because I was watching. Tuesday evening, Jenna left for her usual client dinner, and I followed her straight to the Riverside Inn. She parked in the back lot, walked through the lobby like she owned it, and disappeared into the elevator. An hour later, Luke arrived, using the side entrance like he was in some kind of spy movie. Amateur. They thought one conversation would scare me off. They thought I'd crawl back to my garage and pretend nothing had happened. They'd seriously underestimated what I was capable of. I sat in my car, watching the hotel windows, and felt something shift inside me. The old Mark, the one who fixed other people's problems and apologized for taking up space, was gone. In his place was someone harder, someone who understood that nice guys don't finish last because they're nice. They finish last because they let people walk all over them. I wasn't going to let that happen anymore. Wednesday morning, I called Mr. Geller and told him I needed the rest of the week off. Family emergency. Is there anything I can do to help? He asked. Just give me some time to handle things. I'll be back Monday and everything will be resolved. I spent the morning at my computer, building what I mentally called the file. Photos from the gym, screenshots of Luke's social media posts, a timeline of Jenna's lies, copies of the hotel phone messages, everything organized, labeled, and ready for distribution. Then I drove to Sophie's college. Ohio State's campus was huge and intimidating, full of young people who looked like they had their whole lives figured out. I found Sophie at the student union, sitting with a group of friends, all of them staring at their phones like they contained the meaning of life. Dad? She looked up, surprised and not particularly pleased. What are you doing here? We need to talk. Her friends exchanged glances, probably wondering if this was some kind of family drama they were about to witness. Sophie stood reluctantly, clearly embarrassed. Can we make this quick? I have class in 20 minutes. I led her to a quiet corner of the building, away from curious ears. I know about your mother and Luke, I said without preamble. Her face went through several expressions, surprise, guilt, defiance, before settling on something that looked almost like relief. Finally, she said. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. She'd been waiting for me to discover my wife's affair like it was some kind of test I'd been failing. You encouraged her, I said. I encouraged her to be happy, something you obviously can't do. I'm your father, Sophie. Yeah, and she's my mother. And she deserves better than a guy who's given up on life. She checked her phone, already bored with the conversation. Look, Dad, I'm sorry you're hurt, but this is between you and Mom. Don't drag me into it. You dragged yourself into it when you told her she deserves someone like Luke. She shrugged. She does. Luke makes her happy. He makes her feel alive. When's the last time you did that? I stared at my daughter, this young woman I'd raised and supported and loved, and saw a stranger. When had she become so cold? When had she decided I was worth so little? You're right, I said finally. I haven't made her happy, but I've provided for both of you. I've worked every day for 22 years to give you the life you wanted. And we appreciate that. But appreciation isn't love, Dad. And providing isn't the same as living. She said it like she was explaining something obvious to a slow child. So what now? I asked. Your mother leaves me for Luke, and you get a new stepfather who looks good in Instagram photos. Maybe. Would that be so terrible? Maybe you could find someone too, someone more compatible. Compatible, like I was a piece of software that needed an upgrade. I should get to class, she said, already walking away. Try not to make this harder than it has to be, okay? I watched her disappear into the crowd of students and felt the last piece of my old self crumble away. My daughter had just given me permission to be replaced, like I was a worn-out appliance that had outlived its usefulness. The drive home was a blur of rage and planning. By the time I reached my driveway, I knew exactly what I was going to do. That evening, Jenna came home with another elaborate story about client meetings and legal briefs. She'd stopped trying to be convincing, probably assuming I was too stupid or too beaten down to question her. How was your day? She asked, settling onto the couch with a glass of wine. Productive. Very productive. I sat across from her, studying her face. I drove up to see Sophie. A flicker of something, worry, crossed her expression. Oh, how is she? She's fine. We had an interesting conversation about family loyalty. What do you mean? She told me I should try not to make things harder than they have to be. Jenna's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Make what harder? Your affair with Luke Hines. The glass slipped from her fingers, red wine spreading across our cream-colored carpet like a wound. She stared at me, her mouth open, looking genuinely shocked that I'd finally said it out loud. Mark, Don't. I held up a hand. Don't lie to me anymore. I know about the hotel. I know about the secret phone. I know about all of it. She closed her mouth, and I watched her mental gears turning, probably trying to figure out how much I actually knew and what she could still deny. How long have you known? She asked finally. Does it matter? The question is what we're going to do about it. She straightened her shoulders, and I saw her lawyer instincts kicking in. Time to negotiate, to minimize damage, to control the narrative. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said carefully. But I'm not happy, Mark. I haven't been happy for a long time. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. Would it have mattered? When's the last time you really looked at me? When's the last time you made me feel like I was more than just a roommate who helps pay the bills? The words stung because they contained enough truth to hurt. I had gotten comfortable, I had stopped trying, but that didn't justify what she'd done. So this is my fault. It's both our faults. We grew apart. We became different people. Luke just helped me remember who I used to be. Luke is a personal trainer who posts shirtless selfies for a living. Luke is successful and confident and alive. He makes me feel like I'm worth something. And I don't? She looked at me with something that might have been pity. When's the last time you made me feel beautiful? When's the last time you surprised me or took me somewhere special or even just told me I look nice? I couldn't remember, and we both knew it. I want a divorce, she said quietly. There it was, the words I'd been expecting but somehow wasn't prepared to hear. Of course you do. We can be civilized about this. We can split things fairly, work out custody arrangements for Sophie. Sophie's 20 years old. She doesn't need custody arrangements. She needs a college fund, which I've been providing. We can work all of that out. I'm not trying to hurt you, Mark. I just want to be happy. I stood up, looking down at this woman who'd shared my bed for over 2 decades, who'd promised to love me in sickness and health, for better or worse. She was already planning her new life, probably already imagining herself as Luke's girlfriend, posting couple photos on social media, playing house in his expensive apartment. "You're right about one thing," I said. "We have become different people. You've become someone who lies and cheats and involves our daughter in your affairs, and I've become someone who doesn't let people walk all over him anymore." Something in my tone made her look up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means you might want to call Luke. I think he has something to tell you." I walked upstairs, leaving her with the wine stain and her confusion. From our bedroom window, I could see her in the backyard, pacing back and forth with her phone pressed to her ear, probably trying to reach her lover. Good luck with that, I thought. Luke was about to have bigger problems than a jealous husband. Phase 3 was about to begin. Luke hadn't just ignored my warning, he'd gotten sloppy. Thursday afternoon, I followed Jenna to Elite Fitness and watched through the windows as they barely tried to hide their relationship. They were touching constantly, whispering, acting like teenagers who thought they'd invented love. The other gym members were starting to notice. I could see them exchanging glances, probably wondering if their married friend was having an affair with the trainer. Small-town gossip mills thrived on exactly this kind of drama. Time to give them something really worth talking about. Friday morning, I created several anonymous email accounts and started my campaign. The first message went to Elite Fitness's corporate office, complete with photos of Luke's unprofessional conduct with a married client. The second went to the local newspaper's gossip columnist, a woman named Patricia Wells who specialized in society scandals. The third went to every partner at Morrison & Associates, Jenna's law firm. Each email contained carefully selected photos and a detailed timeline of the affair. Nothing illegal, nothing that could get me in trouble, just the truth presented in a way that would cause maximum embarrassment. By noon, my phone was ringing. "Mark, it's Patricia Wells from the Herald. I was hoping we could chat about a story I'm working on." "I'm not sure I can help you," I said, though of course I could. "It's about professional ethics in the fitness industry. Someone sent me some very interesting photos of inappropriate trainer-client relationships. I was wondering if you had any comment?" "I'm not familiar with the fitness industry." "But you are familiar with Elite Fitness, aren't you? Your wife is a member there." I let the silence stretch out, giving her time to draw her own conclusions. "If you change your mind about commenting, please call me. This story is running in Sunday's edition either way." "Perfect." The second call came 20 minutes later. Jenna, her voice tight with panic. "Mark, I need you to come to my office, now." "I'm busy." "This isn't a request. We need to talk." I found her in the parking garage of her law firm, pacing beside her BMW like a caged animal. She looked terrible, pale, shaken, her usual composure completely gone. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play games with me. Someone sent photos to my partners. Photos of me and Luke at the gym." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Her voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what this could do to my career? Morrison & Associates has a morality clause in their partnership agreement. I could lose everything." "You should have thought of that before you started sleeping with your trainer." She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my sleeve. "Please, I know you're angry, but don't destroy my life over this." Looking at her, I felt a moment of something that might have been sympathy. She looked genuinely terrified, and part of me, the old part, wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered Sophie's casual cruelty, Jenna's lies, the months of deception and planning to replace me. "You destroyed your own life," I said. "I just documented it." "The photos, how did you get them? Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. Have you been following me, spying on me?" "I've been paying attention, something I should have been doing all along." She let go of my arm and stepped back, studying my face like she was seeing me for the first time. "You're different," she said. "I'm awake. This isn't you, Mark. You don't do things like this. You're not vindictive." "You're right. The old Mark wasn't vindictive. He was a doormat, but the old Mark is gone and you helped destroy him." My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. "You might want to check the news," I said. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and opened her browser. The color drained from her face as she read. "Fitness trainer under investigation for inappropriate client relationships," she read aloud. "Elite Fitness corporate reviewing conduct policies after allegations surface." The article was everything I'd hoped for. Patricia Wells had done her homework, interviewing other gym members who'd witnessed Luke's behavior, getting quotes from fitness industry experts about professional boundaries, even including a statement from Elite Fitness management about their zero-tolerance policy for inappropriate conduct. Luke's photo was prominently featured, along with several shots of him with various female clients in what the article described as questionable situations. They fired him, Jenna whispered, scrolling through her phone. Elite Fitness fired him this morning. Actions have consequences. His apartment, he posted on social media that he can't make rent without his job. He's talking about moving back to Cleveland. I felt a surge of satisfaction. Luke's perfect life was crumbling, his social media empire built on sand, his wealthy clients disappearing like morning fog. What about us? Jenna asked. What about our marriage? What marriage? You ended our marriage months ago when you started meeting him in hotel rooms. We could try counseling. We could work through this. Could we? Because yesterday you told me you wanted a divorce. Has that changed? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. We both knew the answer. She didn't want to save our marriage. She wanted to save her career and her reputation. The partners are meeting Monday morning to discuss my future with the firm, she said finally. I'm sure they'll be fair. Fair? She laughed bitterly. Mark, they're lawyers. They don't care about fair. They care about image and liability and keeping their names out of the gossip columns. Then you have a problem. I started walking toward my car, leaving her standing in the parking garage with her phone and her panic. This isn't over, she called after me. You're right, I said without turning around. It's just getting started. That evening I sat in my garage with a drink, scrolling through the online comments on Patricia Wells's article. The internet had done what the internet does best, taken a local scandal and turned it into a feeding frenzy. Luke's social media accounts were being flooded with angry messages from people calling him a homewrecker and worse. Someone had found his address and posted it online. His carefully curated image as a fitness guru and motivational speaker was being shredded in real time. Jenna hadn't come home, probably staying at a hotel, trying to figure out how to salvage her career and her relationship with a man who was quickly becoming toxic to anyone associated with him. My phone rang. Sophie. Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom called me crying, saying you've lost your mind. I've found it, actually. She said you're trying to destroy her career. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm doing it. Silence on the other end of the line. This isn't like you, she said finally. You're the second person to tell me that today. Maybe the person I used to be wasn't working out so well. Dad, please. I know you're hurt, but this is too much. Mom made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve this. She made a choice. Choices have consequences. What do you want? Money? The house? What will it take for you to stop this? I thought about her question. What did I want? Revenge, obviously. But more than that, I wanted them to understand what they'd done. I wanted them to feel as small and helpless as they'd made me feel. I want you to understand something, I said. For months, you and your mother planned to replace me. You discussed it in my kitchen, encouraged her affair, treated me like I was already gone. You made me feel like I didn't matter, like I was just an obstacle to your happiness. Dad, I'm not finished. You both assumed I was too weak or too stupid to fight back. You underestimated me. That was your mistake. So what now? You destroy our lives to prove a point? I'm showing you the consequences of treating people like they're disposable. This is what happens when you push someone too far. And if we apologize, if Mom ends things with Luke and we try to be a family again? I looked around my garage, at the tools and projects and evidence of a life spent fixing other people's problems while my own fell apart. It's too late for that, I said. Some things can't be fixed. I hung up and finished my drink, already planning the next phase. Luke was finished, his reputation destroyed, his livelihood gone. Jenna was facing professional ruin and social humiliation. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. They wanted to see what I was capable of when pushed too far. They were about to find out. Saturday morning brought a knock at my door. I opened it to find Ashley Monroe, Jenna's best friend and law partner, standing on my porch with the kind of expression usually reserved for funeral directors. We need to talk, she said. Ashley was everything Jenna aspired to be. Perfectly groomed, expensively dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. She'd always treated me like I was slightly beneath her notice, a necessary accessory to her friend's life. About what? About the fact that you're destroying innocent people's lives. I almost laughed. Innocent? Luke Hines lost his job because of you. His reputation is ruined. He's getting harassment messages, people showing up at his apartment. You've turned him into a target. He turned himself into a target when he decided to sleep with married women. Ashley pushed past me into my living room, making herself at home like she always did. She looked around at the modest furniture and slightly worn carpet with barely concealed disdain. And Jenna? She's my business partner, Mark. If she goes down, it affects all of us at the firm. Then you should have thought about that before you encouraged her affair. Her perfectly composed expression cracked slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent with me, Ashley. You think I don't know you've been pushing Jenna toward this for months? All those girls' nights out where you filled her head with ideas about what she deserved, how she could do better? I encouraged her to be happy. You encouraged her to cheat on her husband and destroy her family. There's a difference." Ashley sat down on my couch like she owned it, crossing her legs and fixing me with the kind of stare she probably used on hostile witnesses. "What do you want, Mark? Money? A better settlement in the divorce? What's it going to take to make this stop? You think this is about money? Everything's about money. Name your price." I studied her face. This woman who'd spent years treating me like hired help at my own dinner table, who'd whispered poison in my wife's ear and then acted surprised when it took root. "I want the truth," I said. "What truth?" "About how long you've been planning this, about how you manipulated Jenna into the affair, about what you really get out of destroying my marriage." Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or fear. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. See, I've been doing some research on you, Ashley. Very interesting background. Did you know you can find almost anything online if you know where to look?" I pulled out my laptop and opened a file I'd been building all week. Ashley's face went pale as she recognized what she was seeing. 3 years ago, you had an affair with a married client. Cost you your job at Brennan and Associates. 2 years before that, you were involved in a harassment lawsuit at your previous firm. Seems like you have a pattern of getting involved in other people's marriages. That's not... Those situations were different. Were they? Or do you just enjoy the drama, the power of being the one who breaks things apart? She stood up abruptly, her composure finally cracking. "You don't understand anything about Jenna's situation. I understand that you saw a vulnerable woman in a stagnant marriage and decided to use her for your own entertainment. I helped her realize she deserved better. You helped her destroy her family because it made you feel important, because you get off on being the puppet master pulling the strings." Ashley's face was flushed now, her lawyer's mask completely gone. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I? Let me tell you what I think happened. You saw Jenna getting comfortable in her marriage, maybe a little bored, and you started working on her. Little comments about how she could do better, how she was too good for a guy like me. You introduced her to Luke, probably suggested she start working out, get back in shape. Then you encouraged the friendship, pushed her toward the affair, all while pretending to be the supportive best friend. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because I have text messages that say otherwise." I turned the laptop screen toward her, showing screenshots of conversations between her and Jenna that I'd recovered from the secret phone. "You deserve someone who appreciates you," I read aloud. "Mark's never going to change. Maybe it's time to explore your options. Luke seems really interested in you. Maybe you should see where it goes." Ashley stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You orchestrated the whole thing," I continued. "You picked the target, arranged the meetings, even suggested the hotel. You turned my wife into your personal soap opera. Jenna made her own choices. After months of manipulation from someone she trusted, someone who was supposed to be her friend." I closed the laptop and looked at this woman who'd helped destroy my marriage for her own amusement. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to tell Jenna the truth about your role in all of this. You're going to admit that you manipulated her into the affair because you enjoy destroying other people's lives. And if I don't?" I smiled, and something in my expression made her step backward. "Then I'm going to share your interesting employment history with every law firm in the state. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Your career will be over before Monday morning." "You can't do that." "Can't I? I've already destroyed Luke's career and damaged Jenna's reputation. What makes you think you're untouchable?" She stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. "This isn't over," she said finally. "You're right. It's not." After she left, I sat in my living room and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Complete clarity. For the first time since this whole mess started, I knew exactly what I was doing and why. Ashley had confirmed what I'd suspected all along. The affair hadn't been a spontaneous mistake or a moment of weakness. It had been carefully orchestrated by someone who enjoyed pulling strings and watching people dance. Well, now it was my turn to pull strings. I spent the rest of Saturday preparing for the final phase of my plan. Sunday's newspaper would feature a follow-up article about Luke, complete with interviews from other women who'd had inappropriate encounters with fitness trainers. Monday morning would bring a partners meeting at Morrison & Associates where Jenna's future would be decided. But that was just the warm-up act. The real show was going to happen Tuesday night at the annual Morrison & Associates Charity Gala, the biggest social event of the year, attended by every lawyer, judge, and prominent citizen in town. The perfect venue for the final act of this drama. I'd already bought a ticket, expensive, but worth every penny for what I had planned. Jenna thought she could replace me quietly, discreetly, with minimal damage to her reputation. Ashley thought she could manipulate people's lives without consequences. Luke thought he could prey on lonely wives without anyone fighting back. They were all about to learn how wrong they'd been. The old Mark would have accepted defeat gracefully, signed the divorce papers, and faded quietly into the background. But the old Mark was gone, replaced by someone who understood that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Tuesday night was going to be very interesting. The Morrison & Associates Charity Gala was held at the East Bridge Country Club, a sprawling venue that screamed old money and established power. I arrived early, wearing the one good suit I owned, and positioned myself at the bar where I could watch the entrance. The guest list read like a who's who of local society: judges, politicians, business leaders, and of course every lawyer in the county. These were the people who shaped public opinion, who decided reputations, who could make or break careers with a whispered conversation over cocktails. Perfect. Jenna arrived at 8, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked beautiful, but brittle, like expensive crystal that might shatter at the wrong touch. The past week had taken its toll. I could see it in the tight lines around her eyes, the way she held herself too carefully. She was accompanied by 2 other partners from her firm, probably there to provide moral support and damage control. Word of the affair had spread through the legal community like wildfire, and everyone was watching to see how the drama would unfold. Luke wasn't there, of course. His social standing had evaporated along with his job and reputation. Last I'd heard, he was indeed moving back to Cleveland, tail between his legs, his Instagram following decimated by the scandal. Ashley arrived 20 minutes later, scanning the room nervously. She'd been avoiding my calls all week, probably hoping I'd forget about our conversation. She was about to learn that I had an excellent memory. I waited until the dinner portion of the evening was over and people had moved to the ballroom for dancing and socializing. Then I made my move. The country club's audio-visual system was surprisingly sophisticated. Multiple screens around the ballroom, wireless microphones, even the ability to connect external devices. I'd done my homework on the setup during a reconnaissance visit earlier in the week, posing as a potential client interested in hosting an event. The technical staff was busy with other duties, and it was remarkably easy to access the control booth during a quiet moment. Amazing how invisible a middle-aged man in a service uniform could be at an event like this. I connected my laptop to the system and returned to the ballroom, positioning myself near the back where I could watch the show unfold. At exactly 10 o'clock, during a lull in the evening's program, the screens around the room flickered to life. The first image was a photo of Jenna and Luke at Elite Fitness, embracing after a yoga class. Innocent enough, but clearly intimate to anyone who knew what to look for. The room went quiet as people noticed the screens. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, glasses paused halfway to lips. The second image was more damning, Luke adjusting Jenna's pose during a private training session, his hands positioned in ways that were definitely not professional. Someone near the front of the room said, "What the hell is this?" The third image was from the hotel parking lot, Jenna and Luke kissing beside his Audi, her wedding ring clearly visible in the photograph. Now the room was buzzing with shocked whispers. I could see Jenna across the ballroom, her face white with horror as she realized what was happening. Ashley was beside her, frantically looking around like she was searching for the exit. But I wasn't done. The fourth image was a screenshot of text messages between Ashley and Jenna, planning the affair, discussing how to manage the deception. Ashley's role as puppet master laid out in black and white for everyone to see. "Someone stop this," a voice called out. But the technical staff was nowhere to be found, and the wireless system was locked behind passwords only I knew. The fifth image was the most damaging, a photo of all 3 of them together at a restaurant downtown, clearly celebrating something. The timestamp showed it was taken just 2 days after I'd confronted Luke at the coffee shop. They'd been laughing about my pathetic attempt to scare them off. The room erupted in chaos. People were pointing, talking, some pulling out their phones to record the spectacle. This was the kind of scandal that would be talked about for years, the kind of story that would define reputations and end careers. I watched Jenna push through the crowd toward the exit, Ashley close behind her. Several partners from Morrison & Associates followed, their faces grim. The damage control meeting was probably starting before they even reached the parking lot. But I still had one more card to play. I activated the wireless microphone I'd planted earlier and began speaking, my voice echoing through the ballroom sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting your evening, but I felt you should know the truth about some of the people you work with and socialize with. The room went completely silent, everyone looking around, trying to figure out where the voice was coming from. My name is Mark Carter. The woman in those photographs is my wife of 22 years, Jenna Carter, a partner at Morrison & Associates. The man with her is Luke Hines, a personal trainer who specializes in seducing married clients. The other woman is Ashley Monroe, also a partner at Morrison & Associates, who orchestrated the entire affair for her own entertainment. I could see security guards moving through the crowd, trying to locate me, but I was just another face in the sea of shocked guests. For months, these three people conspired to destroy my marriage and my family. They met in secret, lied to everyone around them, and treated the destruction of a 22-year relationship like it was a game. They assumed I was too weak or too stupid to fight back. The security guards were getting closer, but I wasn't finished. They were wrong. Actions have consequences, choices have prices, and sometimes the people you underestimate are the ones who end up having the last word. I turned off the microphone and slipped out through a side exit, leaving behind a ballroom full of shocked guests and a scandal that would dominate local gossip for months to come. In the parking lot, I could see Jenna and Ashley standing beside their cars, surrounded by other lawyers, everyone talking at once. Damage control was already beginning, but some kinds of damage couldn't be controlled. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know the story. By next week, it would be common knowledge throughout the legal community. Jenna's reputation was finished, Ashley's career was over, and Luke was already gone, driven out of town by the consequences of his actions. I drove home through empty streets, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete satisfaction. Not happiness exactly, but the deep contentment that comes from a job well done. The house was dark and quiet when I arrived. Jenna's things were already gone. She'd moved out during the week, probably staying with Ashley or in a hotel. The divorce papers were on the kitchen table. Along with a note I didn't bother reading, I poured myself a drink and sat in my garage, surrounded by the tools and projects that had once defined my life. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out what came next. New job, maybe, since my association with the scandal would probably cost me clients. New town, possibly, since staying in Eastbridge would mean living with the aftermath of what I'd done. But tonight, I just sat in the quiet darkness and savored the victory. They'd called me pathetic, disposable, a failure who'd given up on life. They'd assumed I would accept their betrayal quietly, fade into the background, let them build their new lives on the ruins of mine. They'd been wrong about everything. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the wreckage we all deserved and smiled.